Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. This is the weekly game segment I do about once a month that covers topics such as board games, and sometimes even board games. It's been a while. It's been a few weeks since I've checked in, so I wanted to kind of chat with you guys. We're in the tail end of May, heading into June. Last week was 80, this week is 40. That's just the nature of this area, as we all know. So, well, as we all in this area know, but I hope you guys are having good weather. There's nothing. The reason for my hiatus, and this is going to segment into a tribute I'm going to give because about 3 weeks ago, one of the first subscribers to my channel, as preface, this channel started with a bunch of local people, guys, who were just asking questions, and I thought, well, I'll just make a channel and throw together some thoughts for people asking about board games and stuff, because I knew I was big on board games, and it grew from there into this really cool community of people in this tiny little spot of YouTube that I've really enjoyed interacting with. You guys have been so fantastic. That aside, my good friend Greg Heath was one of the first people to join in the board game fashion. He's been a friend of mine for 10 years, worked with him and such, and in unspectacular, utterly sad fashion, he lost his life in a freak sleeping accident. He would laugh at that, but no, he went to bed and he didn't wake up. And that was really hard. That was a pretty devastating blow when you lose a friend like that. His wife and his two young boys have been reeling from that, and so I took a hiatus from both board games and life a little bit to kind of go through that. Greg was one of the nicest, kindest, most caring, giving, friendly guys that you will ever meet. People came from all four corners of the country to Texas to say goodbye and pay our respects, and I took my son there as well. Enjoyed the heat. The rest of it was painful but necessary. So just a tribute to my friend Greg Heath. I thank you for the many, many years of gaming and for the even farther years of friendship. We will miss you. The last time we spoke was a couple weeks earlier before his passing, when we talked about plans for meeting together when Frosthaven was released, and not going to be the same now. So anyway, kudos, Greg. We'll see you later. So with that, let's get to the news. All right, in our news, we have some titles coming up. We have a new expansion for Maracaibo. As you know, I love pirate games. I'm big on pirate games, and Maracaibo was one of my favorites for kind of a high-level, highlight reel pirate game that I thought did a really good job. And the Alexander Pfister touch was always present in that game, just as it is in all of his games, obviously. But this new expansion has pretty much more of everything. It doesn't really have any particular focal point. I saw it was basically just a bunch of things to just beef up all the aspects of play of Maracaibo, so it's a no-brainer for me. No-brainer. No bueno. In Kickstarters, we've got some rolling in. It's not one, not two, but several thousand Kickstarters, it seems, every month that are trying to make our way to my collection. But there's a few that I picked that I thought were great, or not. The first one is Castle Panic, which is a game that's been around for probably 10 years, and is sort of the easiest tower defense game that you're going to play in a board game format. It's coming out with a deluxe edition, and this is not just deluxe in name only. This is a serious deluxe edition. It has all the big plastic pieces for building your castles and big bulwarks and battle mounts and towers and all that stuff. It is mighty, mighty, mighty indeed. It is $350 if you want to go all in on it, and there is no way I could justify that. So because the game itself is way simpler, and honestly, after playing After the Empire, I would rather, I mean, which was already deluxe enough in its own right, I would probably not take the die. But some who are really loving Castle Panic, there's a lot of people, it's obviously funded well beyond its mark, might enjoy it. I just can't see paying over twice what I paid for my first car for this. So anyway, next up, though, is a game called Mosaic on Kickstarter, which is a game by Glenn Drover, which is one of my he's made some games that just are epic, and I love them, and I buy almost everything I can. Age of Empires 3, the board game, was one that I played as well. It's Mosaic is a civilization game. It's got great artwork. It's got that sort of civilization expanding feel. It does have a solo mode, and it has mode for other players if you decide that you like people again. Which I hopefully easily do. It's supposed to be played in a couple hours, so I've had a lot of Civ games that supposedly play in a couple hours, some better than others. This though, I kind of have a confidence, and it's low price of $150. It's only the price of my first car. So, and finally, Hoplomachus Victorum. From Chip Theory Games, the makers of Too Many Bones, Burn Cycle, Cloudspire, they have a solo-only game that this is, and it's intriguing to me. It has sort of you playing different acts, chapters per se, and building yourself up. It uses some of the same mechanisms and pieces and components that I saw in some of the other games from Chip Theory. And at $95, it's only almost the price of my first car. So. And finally, special thanks to a subscriber, Brad R., who posted a comment, and then when I tried to find it, it had disappeared. But it was in response to a previous video I'd done where I talked about how I really like to read games or read books that inspired me before playing certain games. I think it was Red Rising or some other ones. But whoever you are, and I don't know why your comment disappeared, but thank you, Brad R., for providing me with a Board Game Geek link of a geek list that's filled with all kinds of recommendations for games and then the books to read. I found that about half of them, of the games I have, and of those I've read books on almost all of them. And so I think we should, take a look at it if you want and see. I mean, like I said, I'll post the link, but as someone who really, really likes to read and really, really likes to play board games and likes to read about board games if they have a link, this link was great. I actually ordered a couple books recommended by some of that. So anyway, thank you, Brad R. Don't know where you are, where you went, but thank you for the link. So with that, let's get to my question of the week. Question of the week. How important is backstory to my gaming? Not very. Alright, let's get to three. I'm kidding. So, backstory, and by that I mean like you open a game box and usually there's some flavor text or a blurb or something that sets a stage. Not every game obviously needs it. I don't need a backstory for chess or Monopoly. But other games, generally speaking, whenever you have a game that's about some sort of theme or whatever, any narrative at all, you want a backstory. And honestly, I think part of it's, if I want one, I don't require one or think that it has to make a make or break point for me as far as whether this game is going to rock. Does it have an awesome backstory? Most of the time, I find them to be pedantic, like formulaic, like, okay, we got to add some flavor text here. I don't know that that's really what happens. I think everybody, for the most part, I would expect that people making board games want an interesting backstory for some of the games. I guess I'm picky. I guess I'm just pickier, and if it doesn't stand out, then, to that said, what are some examples of good backstory games? Netrunner and Doomtown. They come as you get the expansion packs for Netrunner and all that, you find there's a very, very well written story. Like one that's like, okay, I care about what happens to this character, and now that I'm playing this character, this deck that represents this character, I'm really intrigued by it. I'm really like how everything thematically fits. I think narrative is important, but I do like to see narrative actually fused into gameplay if you're going to bother doing it at all. If not, some games it's just like, yeah, Buffy ate a mushroom and now we gotta save the day in Yorkshire town with a corn dog and 3 layers of Cheetos. I don't know. I'm going weird. But, yeah, the backstory is not that necessary, but, that's just me. Do other people feel like they really get a lot out of the backstories of games? Given the incredible amount of games and trying to think of which ones need a backstory, yeah, there's a lot. One of the things is that there's so many narrative-based games now compared to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when games were much more about the mechanisms. And then you add this sort of like, oh, let's make this about, 14th century snot welding. Now, pretty much everything kind of feels like it has to have a narration. We've really amped up the game in the narration department. And so rather than being a dearth of it, we have really almost a glut of it. And so I don't think that backstory it's almost like a given, but yeah, no, I've never gone, wow, I would have bought that game, but man, the backstory was just trite. No. I would have gone, wow, I like this game. The backstory is trite, but I like the game. Whatever. Anyway, your thoughts? Let me know. Let's get to my 3 games. Lawyer Up. That's right, a game where you get to play the prosecutor or the defendant in a game. And in this, there have been some legal kind of games, like you aces and phoenixes and attorneys and such. This is one that actually has a compelling. You're trying to convince a jury. You've got evidence to collect. You've got things to do. I'm really intrigued by it. This just arrived from Kickstarter. Actually close to on time, and then it's got a couple extra cases. The beauty is you don't have to just play through the content and be done. You can actually play these over and over, so that's nice. It's not a sort of a legacy game where you're like, oh, I went through all the cases and now I'm done. Unlike, say, Detective City of Angels, which is a little more about once you played it, you're pretty much played it. Next we have Sea of Legends. I did an unboxing for this because I had plenty of time to, because it had no it did not have the app ready when I got it. It arrived in the boxes and it looked all swell and good, so I did the unboxing, and then I wanted to paint the miniatures and I got really good recommended. Someone pushed me on to do it, and then I thought, you know what? I started painting a little bit. And then other games came along, but then I thought, you know what? I've got Forgotten Waters. I think I'll play that again. Hint. And finally, you ever have one of those years when you didn't remember that you ordered a game and then it shows up at your doorstep? Yeah, that's Titans. Titans is a one to something or other game where you've got lots of miniatures, area control. I honestly must have just clicked back in my sleep, and it looks pretty cool. I haven't really read much on it because clearly it's been a couple of years since I backed it, but it's heavy, so it must be cool, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's my 3 games. Let's get to the Tim Machine. Okay, the years are 1989 and 1990. That's right. What did I do after my high school life? Well, it's kind of a blur. So, 1989, what was the top story? The Berlin Wall comes falling down. I had I had good memories of that. Tear down this wall. Anyway, top movie was Field of Dreams, and if you build it, they will come. And if you tear it down, it was a wall. Anyway, the song of the year 1989 was Look Away by Chicago. Still hear that every once in a while on the oldies music stations. The book was The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I have read every book from Ken Follett, and The Pillars of the Earth was definitely one of the premier ones. I really liked the movie, too. I thought, unlike the second, when they adapted the second book to a movie, and I thought it was horrific, I think Pillars of the Earth was just stellar. I think it was a stellar casting. I think it did a really good job with the books. Personally, I really liked it. So what did I play? Well, Hero Quest. Yeah, I was pleased. What would I have bought if I knew then what I know now? Well, Space Hulk. Yeah, I still have Space Hulk Death Angel lying around here somewhere. I hear it's going for a pretty penny these days. And what game did I want to play? Well, I wanted to play Red Storm Rising. I'm not sure why I didn't. But it turns out about 6 months ago I ended up grabbing a copy, so there might even be a review of that coming up. And let's get to 1990. The top story was Nelson Mandela being freed after 27 years in prison. Wow. The top movie was Dances with Wolves, not to be confused with Footloose, which was Dances with Babies in Corners. Anyway, the song was Hold On by Wilson Phillips, and the book was The Bourne Ultimatum by Robert Ludlum, which eventually people know it as a movie. Not every kid knows it was actually a book, too. What did I play? Hot Shot Basketball. That's right. I enjoyed that, too. The greatest dexterity game life has ever known. What game would I have bought then, if I'd known then what I know now? Silver Bayonet from GMT. I think that would have... I don't know that I would have been able to grok it at that age, though, to be honest with you. I just wasn't in that headspace. But what game did I want to play? Starfleet Battles. And I'm still looking for the greatest 4X space game ever, and I've seen a lot of them, and I've seen a lot of great ones, but I still haven't seen the one to end all ones. So that's it. Thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.